Namaste, Hare. So take a moment. Let's do a little invocation, okay? And we're going to do invocation for Durga, the Amazonian warrior princess in yoga mythology. So go ahead and find a nice comfortable position. Sit tall. Close the eyes. Next breath out through the mouth. Get all the air out. Push it out. Through the nose, inhale. Release. Breathe. Om Jaya Mata Durge Namo Namaha Jaya Mata Durge Namo Namaha Jaya Mata Durge Namo Namaha. Om. Welcome. So, as we continue our journey through the Bhagavad Gita, the Eknath Iswaran version and translation of the Bhagavad Gita, if you have noticed that before each chapter of the Gita, there is a introduction to what is to come. And this can be very helpful, of course, but not only is an introduction of what is to come, but there are so many pearls of wisdom and insights throughout the text. They did such a good job. I love this book. This is a book that if you don't have it hard copy, highly recommend you get two. One for your library and inevitably one to give away because it always happens. It's such a psychedelic book. So early on in chapter 2, if you have this same book as me, the Eknath Iswaran version, it's page 93. It's one of my, I think possibly all-time favorite quotes and my favorite little piece of the Bhagavad Gita because it grants a lot of grace. This is page 93, verse 40. On this path, effort never goes to waste, and there is no failure. Even a little effort towards spiritual awareness will protect you from the greatest fear. This is Krishna speaking to Arjuna about why he's got to fight, why he should fight. And throughout the next coming chapters, he keeps on kind of repeating himself because he wants to make sure that Arjuna really understands that he's got to consider his dharma being in this warrior caste, right? And he says, this is on page 92 here, verse 31. Considering your dharma, you should not vacillate. For a warrior, nothing is higher than war against evil. So it's making him a martyr a little bit as well. And this we can see in The Lord of the Rings, truly, of course, with Frodo, yes. But what about, other characters? What about Boromir? Ooh. What about Samwise? They are doing things that are risking their lives, or in some cases, they do die because they realize that when it comes to the history standpoint, they want to make sure they're remembered as being on the right side of history. So for a warrior, nothing is higher than a war against evil. Really, really nice. Great. Now, page 93, going to verse 42. I love this dialogue because Krishna is not afraid to get a little bit flowery with the verbiage and the thematically what we're talking about, because he knows that this is not just a war, a battle on the battlefield. This is not a war against Mordor and orcs and Uruks and everything. This is representing the internal war zone, the battlefield within your heart. So a lot of people kind of think, oh, the Bhagavad Gita is promoting violence. You can look at it in that perspective, sure, the physical violence of it, but what about the internal battle? What about the war within your own psyche and body that is a constant engaging in battle with self throughout incarnations and lifetimes? So page 93, verse 42, there are ignorant people who speak flowery words and take delight in the letter of the law, saying that there is nothing else. Their hearts are full of selfish desires, Arjuna. Their idea of heaven is their own enjoyment. And the aim of all their activities is pleasure and power. The fruit of their actions is continual rebirth. So what he's saying is that if you succumb to sense desires and you are taking delight in the ignorance of it all, then your karma, the fruit of your action, the karma, the action of selfishness, is continual rebirth. If you do not believe in reincarnation, don't lose me here, okay? You don't need to think about it in that way. Think about it in all of the different lives that you have lived within this timeline, this lifetime itself. We go through phases and different chapters, and we look back, we're like, that was a weird chapter when I was almost married to that person, or whatever it is for you, okay? So sometimes the law of karma, K-A-R-M-A, karma, the law of karma states that you will still keep getting the harsh truth and the lesson over and over and over, and it's going to get harsher and more intense each and every time until you fully realize it, learn it, and grow from it. That's just what happens. So if you find yourself, a perfect example is, let's say, just dating losers, and you always, why do I pick the wrong person every time? I'm just attracted to this. Why does this always happen? In the Christian tradition, there's a pastor that says the devil likes to disguise himself in lustful ways. So that's why you keep on dating the same evil spirit in different bodies because you haven't learned from them yet, okay? So just keep that in mind. So what we're talking about in these chapters is addiction and temptation, a lot of that. Now, what's really exciting is that we get to delve into a character analysis with Gollum. Yes. So Gollum has turned into something unrecognizable. This, for a lot of people, could be a perfect depiction of your worst nightmare, of what you could become if you go down the path of addiction deeper and deeper and deeper. Now, there's different ways to think about your dark night of the soul. For some people, it doesn't look like, living in a tent and shooting up. For other people's, it does, right? But what will happen is the more you obsess over a sense desire and you start to withdraw yourself from your higher self, with a capital S, the eternal soul, okay, you isolate yourself from the eternal soul, from God, and you become unrecognizable. And Gollum is a perfect example of this. Through the movie, I think it's maybe the third movie in the very beginning, you can see the transformation and the birth of Gollum. He forgets his real name, right? And he's now going by Gollum, and it's been so long because he has the ring on him that causes him not to age, right? Or if he didn't have it, maybe he would die, right? So he's isolated. He has withdrawn from society in the worst of ways. He's not practicing sadhana, meditation in isolation in Mount Kailash in the Himalayas like Lord Shiva. No. He's getting like so nitty and gritty and dirty with it and obsessed with the thing that's consuming him that he falls deeper and deeper into psychosis, spiritual psychosis. So we'll be exploring the temptations that these characters like Gollum and Arjuna go through in both stories of the Gita and Lord of the Rings. Now, what is really important, and I think overlooked about the character Gollum, is that there are hints, albeit I'm not sure how much we buy into it. There are hints and little twinges of him wanting change. But perhaps maybe he just wants to look like a good guy so that he can lure Frodo in even more. But why is he helping these hobbits find Mordor? Very interesting. Could it be that Gollum has suffered for so long as an addict that he would never want someone else to endure such pain and suffering as he? Maybe. Something to think about. So definitely reflect upon these little twinges that you see of Gollum wanting to change, little hints of him wanting to change. Is it a manipulation tactic? However, we got to get really deep there. Or is there something deep in his soul that is good? Cool. So let's move on here. These bad patterns that quote unquote are comfortable. Okay, let's talk about those. Sometimes in life, it's just easier to do the thing that you know. Even if it's not super healthy for you, you're comfortable with it. And that is just kind of the law of behavioral patterns. And what happens is confirmation bias. And this is getting into the neuroscience of addiction, and whether it's addiction to a substance or a mindset. It goes for all of the above. When you're constantly doing something, even if it's not great for you, but it may be comfortable in the moment for you, over and over again, over a long period of time, especially years and years, maybe even daily, the brain and the body will be tricked into believing that this is the safe thing for me. Maybe it's because you're not applying healthy challenge in your life. And in order to get a spike of some kind of chemical, whether it's dopamine or whatever, you're willing to go to great lengths to go get that. But then what happens is the dopamine level, like the baseline, increases every time you do that. So you need more and more and more. And we're just over consuming disgustingly more and more. What I love about the power of Kriya Yoga is that it's not a workout, it's a work in. It's shedding. It's actually shedding so much off of you. and stripping you down to not even the bare minimum, but like absolute contentment, that it's easier for you to lock in and dial into that true baseline of safety and security, so that you don't need to go to great wild lengths anymore to get that dopamine hit. You go for the true oxytocin, the great love and serotonin that comes with challenge. Shortly after that is followed by reward. Okay? Great. So when we're searching of these high highs all the time, it can be a dopamine addiction. And the false serotonin and oxytocin addiction or drug-induced happiness, all of that kind of stuff, whether it's something at the push of a button to get something that you want, there's not a lot of challenge for you or the body to actually get the reward. So all of that happiness is fleeting. Is it even considered true happiness? Just something to think about. And then what does this leave us with? Nothing but perhaps paranoia or shame because of the lack of service we're being to others, selfishness. So think and just reflect, what temptation or temptations, plural, challenge your path? What temptations actually take you further from that divine God source? And how does Gollum's journey resonate with your experience? As someone who is recovered, and I would say still recovering from drugs and alcohol and addiction, watching Gollum from sober perspective now has been extremely eye-opening. And I have learned so much, and you really feel for him, like really feel. And then you see that the whole story itself is just about addicts. Some are addicted to pride and power, some to other things. So, something to think about. Let's see what else we got here in these chapters here. I believe page 96, verse 62, towards the bottom of the page, last paragraph. When you keep thinking about sense objects, attachment comes. Attachment breeds desire, the lust of possession that burns to anger. Anger clouds the judgment. You can no longer learn from past mistakes. Moving on, verse 64, but when you move amidst the world of sense, free from attachment and aversion alike, there comes the peace in which all sorrows end, and you live in the wisdom of the self. So there is hope, always, always. And he's saying exactly what to do in order to attain that peace. It's to let go of any attachments of the sense desires. Now, throughout the text, when I first read the Bhagavad Gita a few times, I found it a little bit challenging. It could be challenging when Krishna keeps on saying, you gotta just worship me and me alone. Only think of me all the time. Me, I, Krishna. You must realize Krishna is not speaking about himself in human form. He is talking about the universal God, divine creator that lives within every being. You are a part of that too. So when he says me, I, worship me, he's talking about that piece of you that is God as well. Okay, so page 97, towards the bottom, verse 71. They are forever free who renounce all selfish desires and break away from the ego cage of I, me, and mine to be united with the Lord. This is the supreme state. Attain to this and pass from death to immortality. So, this is good. We have hope. Page 101. This is the introduction to chapter 3, okay? And I really love this because it reminded me of making amends in program. They say, only when he is free from every bond of karma, every consequence of past action, can he achieve life's ultimate goal. We gotta clear our side of the street. It may be hard, it may be a living amends, meaning that it's not safe, or the person that you need to make amends to is not in body anymore. But you still got to do it in some way. Write it out, talk it out with sponsor, for sure. But if you can, you should. Highly recommend. They say it right here. Only when he is free from every bond of karma, every consequence of past action, can he achieve life's ultimate goal. Don't let anything weigh your heart down. Excellent. So hopefully this has been enlightening, some insight into Gollum's journey as well, with the temptation and addiction to the ring, and how we can relate to that as well. Om Shanti.